All right, guys, welcome back. I had a couple of requests to do a more in-depth video on wet sanding and buffing. I've done a couple maybe in the past. Pretty certain I have, but we're going to recap on that, and we're going to add a little more depth to it. So thank you for showing back up, and welcome to this episode of In the Garage. What we're going to start with is a bucket of water, and a lot of people add a couple of drops of soap. You absolutely can do that. What I'll be using is just I'll spray it down with Windex as I'm sanding, and then we're going to let's see, that's 1,500, that's 2,000. That is, there we go. We're going to start with 1,000 right there, and then we're going to jump up to 2,000, skipping the 1,500, and then we're going to finish up with 3,000. You can buff after 2,000. You absolutely can. You're going to have to work a little bit harder, but you most certainly can stop at 2,000. 3,000 is going to be really easy to buff. 4,000, if you just want to go that far, would be even easier to buff, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to get you set up, and we're going to walk through the first steps in exactly what it is you're looking for, and we'll just go through the process together. And maybe me and you both gonna learn something. The very first thing you want to do is you really need to let your paper soak for a little while to take some of that stiffness out of it, because when you start getting into the finer grits, I would say 800 and up, then the corners of the paper can really wreak havoc on the finish, because when you're getting into the polishing mode, a little bitty line is called a scratch. So it's not a scratch in the paint, it's not a scratch per se in the clear coat, but it is a line that will have to be dealt with. You'll have to fix that, and one of the ways to minimize that is to soften up your paper. So you want to let your paper soak for a while and get the stiffness out of it, and then you're ready to go. All right, the second thing you're going to need is a sponge. You can see the part number right there. You really need that. You don't want to use your fingers to wet sand with. So this is going to keep our fingerprints out of it. If you do use your fingers when you are in this stage, you absolutely will see it in the finished product. You will literally dig grooves in the clear coat with your fingers. You won't be able to feel it, but they will definitely be there. And I've got you in a very specific spot, because if you'll look right here, you can see a dust nib. So we're going to talk about that, and I'll point it out after we sand it and give you an idea of what it is exactly that you're looking for. So when you very first hit this stuff, let me hold this thing still. You're going to start seeing a color. See that white? That is your clear coat. you know that you're doing work when you start seeing that clear coat. Now, I've barely touched this, but I want to wipe it off because I want you to see exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So, if you look, see this area down here where it's dull and then it's dark. So light and dark, light and dark, light and dark. All right, that's what you're wanting to get rid of. That is orange peel. And as shiny, as this is, we're gonna really ramp it up by doing this because you're gonna take all of that orange peel out. So the spot right here, all right, that's our dust nib. So you can see dull in the center with dark circle and then dull all the way around it, right? All right, we're going to polish, we're going to sand that out. That is one of the main reasons for wet sanding. So I'm going to bring that to your attention by putting that in the middle of the screen. And we're just going to hit this just a couple of times. And that will be gone. See how fast that disappears? Now the goal to wet sanding is to flatten it. See how all this is a uniform color, right? So we know that's flat. We don't need to sit here and grind on this because it's already flat. If you keep going, all you're doing is removing more and more and more of your UV protectant. So that's why I put multiple coats of clear coat on. There's a dust coat and 3 heavy coats of clear because I need to have enough clear to take off to flatten, but still leave enough clear coat on it to protect the color. So we will immediately move on from this spot. So take note again, that solid dull color, that's what you're after. If you look out here on your edges, you can see your dark spots. That's the orange peel. That's what you're getting rid of. That's what it'll look like when you've gone far enough. So sand a few seconds and look. Has to be dry in order to see it. Sand a few seconds and look. Sand a few seconds and look. And you will get there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish sanding this up and with 1000 grit, and then we'll bring you back. So we've come across what's called a pinhole. That little dark spot right there in the center that you can see. So depending on how deep the pinhole is, you might or might not be able to get that out. So let's hit it and let's see if we can get it out. All right, give it a second to dry. All right, you can barely see it. Yeah, I think that is plenty good enough. Now, remember the depth of your clear coat, the thickness of your clear coat dictates how far you can go down. So keep that in mind when you're wet sanding. You are literally sanding. So something else that you need to watch for is you have to keep in mind that what you sand must be polished. And you must keep in mind what tool you're using to polish with. So the reason I say that, you notice this is all shiny all the way around here, right? That is because I can't get in there to buff it. I can get in there and sand it, but I can't get in there and buff it. So you have to keep that in mind, that wherever you sand, you also have to polish. So, you want to stay away from real tight places that you're not going to be able to get your buffer into and to polish it. you know, because the last thing in the world you want to do is sand something that you can't get in there and make shiny again. So just keep that in mind while you're doing that, and that way you can head yourself off at the pass from maybe creating a monster that you don't really know how to fix. So let's talk about another area. So I've got you pointed specifically at where these pinstripes are. So if you'll look above the silver, you can see where the light above me is, and you can see it's interrupted by a dark line, you know, and then you have another dark line below it. That, you can actually feel that. That's the tape lines. So we want to get rid of that. So let's get our Windex. Let's give that a shot. I'll lay this over here. Let's see if we can get rid of that. Sand a minute and check. Sand a minute and check. You can always go back and sand a little more if you need to. It's really hard to put it back. So sand a minute and check. All right, so if you'll look just above your silver pinstripe, you've got a shiny streak. All right, that lets me know I haven't gone far enough. I can see the flatness up here, but I want to get rid of that. Now, I know that I have enough clear coat to do it. So I'm gonna sand a little bit, I'm gonna check. Now I'm not sanding with much force at all. Probably about the weight of my hand. What we got? All right. You can barely see some shiny right there. I've got it here. So you can also see in the, okay, that's a good shot. So in the silver, you see how it almost changes colors, right? So you've got a bright silver up here and then a really dull gray. All right, that light silver is still shiny clear coat. So we've got to go a little bit farther there. And after you do this for a while, your eye will really get keen and tuned in to what you're doing. But it's a learning process. And I'm not gonna lie to you, the stakes are high. Because if you mess up at this stage, then you know, you're looking at a redo. And man, we do not want that. That's why you sand a little and check. Sand a little and check. And you'll get the feel for it. With a little practice, you can get there. Now what we're looking for is that silver pinstripe to be all one color. When you're finished with your 1000 grit, this is what you're looking for. Just a satin, solid color. Once you're there, stop. That's why you sand a little and look. That'll gauge how much sanding you need to do on the rest of the panel. Do not sand any farther than that with your 1000 grit. It will have no effect whatsoever on the finished product as far as depth of shine. None at all. It's counterintuitive to sand past a solid satin finish. All you're doing is removing more and more of your protectant. So once you're here, if that's what you look like, then you're in good shape and you did a good job. So I want to really drive that point home. I've seen a lot of people mess up, you know, with this thought that the more you sand, the deeper the depth of shine, and that is absolutely not correct. So if somebody is telling you that, you need to change the people you're listening to. Through the magic of editing, we have all of our parts wet sanded over there with 1000 grit. So now we're going to go to 2000, and I'll get you set up and we'll get to work on that. When we started our 1000 grit, of course the tank was really shiny. And then we sanded on it, and you see a big difference between before and after. So the reason I say that is when you go from 1000 to 2000, you're not going to have that luxury of being able to tell exactly where you've been. So what I like to do is I like to break it up into sections, so that I can keep straight in my head where I sanded and where I haven't. So what I want to do is half the tank on the right side down to the end, and then I'll switch half the tank on the right side up to the front, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. I mentioned earlier in the video that some people use a little bit of soap in their water and different things. The reason people do that is it helps the paper glide along the surface without wanting to stick to it. And yeah, I see that, and I have done that. But most of the time I like to feel the drag on the paper. I like to tell, you know, be able to tell exactly what it is I'm doing. That's why a lot of times I won't use anything other than water. But let's get to work with this 2000. And we'll see how it ends up. Now, if you'll notice, I'll spin you a little bit. Up here next to the gas fill, I only went so far. You know what I mean? So with our 2000 grit, we're going to go just a little bit farther in. And then with our 3000 grit, we'll go just a little bit farther in from there. Because you don't want to leave 1000 grit marks, you know, just at the edge, and not hit it with higher grit papers, because it'll be really hard to buff in one of the hardest places you're going to have to buff. So what I'm saying is, if you go this far with your 1000, you need to go a little bit farther with your higher grit and a little bit farther with your grit higher than that. That way, when it comes time to buff it, it'll be really easy to buff out here in these places, you know, your edge of where you sanded, if that makes any sense. So what I'll do is I'll make sure I go just past where I stopped with my 1000 grit. And then, like I said, next go around with the 3000, I'll go just a touch farther. I mentioned earlier in the video, the whole time I'm sanding or wet sanding, I am picturing the buffing process. So if you'll notice, I've left a lot of meat over here, right along the edges. So like I said earlier, you want to be able to go past your 1,000 grit with your 2,000. And then you want to go past your 2,000 with your 3,000. So I know that I don't want to be spending a whole lot of time around this edge buffing, because with a buffer, even a foam pad, there is a pretty good chance of burning through a corner like that. So I know that if I barely wrap this edge with 3,000 grit, then I don't have to spend a lot of time right here bringing this back to a shine. So if that makes any sense, I want to spend as little time as possible around that edge to bring this back to a shine. So that's why I've left a lot of room to bring my higher grits closer to this edge, so that I know it won't take but just a second right here to bring that right back to a shine. So that's one of the things that I wanted to clarify, if I didn't make that clear early, was it's a good habit to walk through the buffing process while you're doing your sanding, and let that buffing process guide, you know, where you're going. Yes, I can sand all the way to this edge. I can sand every bit of this and buff it and bring it back to a shine, and probably do it without burning anything. But I know that this is covered. I know that these edges down here will never get seen. So why take the risk of burning a panel and having to redo a panel when you really have nothing to gain by doing that? So that's one of those things you'll have to work out for yourself. You can absolutely sand this entire thing and bring it back up to a polish, even if you have to do it by hand. But why, if there's nothing to be gained from it? Now that we've got all of our panels sanded, now we need to talk about compounds. So you can see in front of you, I've got 4 different compounds that I use, some a lot more than others, and some not at all. Solely and completely my opinion. The 3M works really well. That's the perfected system. I think there's 3 different products that you need to use. This one's number 1. I've got 2 and 3 over in the box, and they certainly work. No doubt about it. The Greitz, pretty user friendly, and does a pretty decent job. And of course, everybody's heard of Meguiar's, and that's a however many number system that you want to choose from. The problem I have with Meguiar's is it's not extremely user friendly. So what I mean by that is, if you're not the fastest buffer in the world, that stuff, if it gets the least bit warm, it just turns into a gummy mess and is really hard to get off. Now, for professional buffers, that might be their go-to, because it certainly works. My favorite, far and above and beyond anything, is this stuff right here. Sonax, made in Germany. It's not very readily available. You have to order it. But it is extremely user-friendly, does a phenomenal job. So if I had to guide somebody, a new person to the buffer world, to a compound and polish, I would choose Sonax. It's a little bit expensive. I don't really remember. I believe this cost the same as that. And then the 2 on the right are the 2 of the cheaper. But yeah, I would choose this stuff right here. The work time is a lot longer than Meguiar's and 3M, and it does just a super job. Very user friendly. Give it a shot. See what you think about it. We'll start with your buffing rag. My preference is a long pile. Of course, extremely soft, but it has no seams. So there's no sewn edges or anything like that to cause any type of micro scratches or spider web or anything like that. And on small parts, this is what I use. It's a hook and loop foam pads. You can either use the flat ones or the waffle ones, doesn't really matter. But the density of your foam corresponds with the step that you're in. So if you're in the cutting phase, which is your first step after you've wet sanded, you want to use a more densely porous foam, a stiffer foam. And that's going to do the best job for you. Now, when you're buffing, you never want to hold still. You never want to stop. Foam is really reducing the chance of burning anything, but out here on the edge, it will definitely burn. So you just want to keep moving and working your buffing compound and watch the shine come back. Now the first thing you do, shake up your compound really well, because it has the cutting agent that's in it settles at the bottom. So you want to make sure you've shaken it up real well, and I have. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this on our brand new pad and just sort of rub it in. Something like that. And then of course we'll put some on the panel and we'll get after it and see what we got. So let's see. Now, when you get over here to your edges, if you'll notice, this thing turns this way. All right, so you don't want your edge, you want your edge falling off. So if it turns this way, lean it back on the edge. You don't want your leading edge to come in, because what it'll want to do is wrap around that edge, and it'll, first of all, it's going to grab your buffer and keep you from controlling it. But the second thing that it really can cause is burning on that edge. So whichever edge is falling off, on this side we would go up on the front, because remember it's turning this way. So we would lean it forward up here, and on this side we would lean it back. y'all saw that in real time. That was, that's why I like this Sonax stuff. I can take my time, I can move slow, and it lasts a long time. So what we'll do is we'll wipe this off real quick and take a look at what we got. All right, we need a little bit more buffing up here, but that turns out pretty freaking good for the first pass. We're going to polish this thing in real time, and I'm going to show you about how long it takes to do your first buff on a panel, what, 12 by 5.5, and that should give you an idea as to how long it should take. Now notice how little I'm putting on here. I only dab it to keep it from slinging so much on me, but you are going to make a mess regardless. All right, y'all watch the clock. Let's see how long this takes. Stop the clock. The reason that we can bring this up to a high shine so quick is not because of the compound, and not because of the foam, and not because of the tool we're using. It is because we went all the way, excuse me, I've got the hiccups. We went all the way to 3,000 grit. I want to make the buffing process as quick and easy as possible. All right, so we're ready for the polishing phase. So even though that looks extremely shiny, and it is in the garage, but if I was to take that panel outside in the sunshine, it would look horrendous. It would be full of spider web, swirl marks. It would look like you really messed some stuff up, but fear not. Don't let that rattle you, because in this Sonax line of compounds and polishes, we have this stuff right here. And if you look, well, I tell you what, let's do this. On our buffing compound, you'll see the cut is all the way up at 6, and the shine is way down here at 3. But on our polishing compound, you'll notice the cut is way down at 4 and the gloss is way up at 6. So that's going to get rid, that's one of the reasons I like this stuff is it's not a multi-step process. It's a buff and compound, and it's a polish and swirl remover in 2 steps. And I just really like this stuff. I like it a lot. So what we're going to do is we are going to polish this tank and move on to the rest of the panels. Get these things done, call this old boy to come pick them up. All right, you've noticed that I've now switched to a much less aggressive, softer foam. And let's see what this stuff does. And it don't take much. Hey, buddy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So you about ready for these parts?
I'm excited. I'm
All
excited
right,
to see
cool.
how it goes. I want to see how it looks.
Yeah, cool.
Excited to get this bike all back together.
Let's go.
And get it ready for the
Heck
season.
yeah. Let's go take a good look at it.
All right.
All right, so we got Daniel here. He's been waiting, what, Daniel, 3 weeks?
Couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, he's ready to get his parts back. We're gonna make him wait just a few more seconds. This is the first time me and Daniel has met face to face. This paint job was put together through text messages and phone calls, and with a little bit of leniency, he let me do a little bit. He picked the colors out and the paint scheme. And so what do you say? Let's flip you around and get his reaction. Ready when you are.
All right, let's go. Oh man, that is perfect. That is absolutely what I was imagining.
Awesome,
Even
that's
better
great.
than what I was imagining.
That's great.
Oh, that is awesome. I am excited.
Your other parts are over here.
That is gonna, man. You know what I'm gonna say? I know I didn't say anything about it, but I'm glad that you left the sticker on there.
Yeah. So the thing with plastic is it's hard to get those stickers off without heat, and heat can warp the plastic. So what I did was just tape around it, paint the colors, and then pull the tape off and clear coat over the top of it.
I mean, this is better than I imagined. This color, I can't wait to see it in like a bright, sunny day.
Well, you know,
Sun.
the thing with your design is it's classy, but it's sporty, and I think it's really going to represent the era of this motorcycle really well. And
I mean, this is better than I imagined.
all right,
So
good,
I'm so excited.
good deal. Well, I'm glad you're happy. It turned out, I think,
The-
pretty dang
like I
good.
said, better than I had pictured. You know, unfortunately I gave you kind of little information. So
Well,
this is the style that I'm looking for. But,
Yeah.
you know, oh man, the way that those colors came out,
Oh man,
that is a great blue.
when you see that blue out in the sun, it's gonna blow your mind.
You know, this is one of those colors that I don't think pictures would do it justice.
No,
It's
and
gotta-
that's
gotta see it in person.
that's the thing with most every paint job is you'll get an idea, you know, through pictures, but until you actually see it.
I
It's,
can't wait to put the bike. I've got the bike all torn down. I've been touching up everything else that's on it, getting it ready. Like, look,
Right.
I can't have a beautiful paint job like this and not have the rest of the bike up to stuff.
Right.
So,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You know, I restore cars, so
yeah.
you know when you make something look really good, well, then all of a sudden that leads to something else. You got to make that look really good, and then before you know it, this over here was never going to be a restoration. It was a get it on the road and get it back to driving.
I can see that.
Yeah, and then it turned into what you see there.
You do the same thing. Like you know what, I'm going to touch up here. Well, now I've got to touch up this, and now, well, I'm just going to pull it apart and touch up everything. Just
Yeah.
fix it up.
Well, let's walk them around it.
Man.
Let's take a gander at this thing. Man, I think it turned out that gold is.
That gold is really, it's hard to tell when you look at something like this, especially watching the video that
Right.
Gene sent me. Like, it looks good. I know there's that metallic in there, but seeing it
Oh,
in
yeah.
person, you really.
Well, like I said, the lights. If you get up, you'll see the metallic under these types of lights.
Yeah.
But when that sun hits it, what the blue will do is turn almost to a dark black.
Oh,
And
I am so
where the
excited.
sun hits it along the body lines, it's going to pop a brilliant bright blue.
I am so excited.
It's I really really like the what the blue does to the gold. And
I think the three colors, the silver, the blue, and the gold,
Yep.
I think they go together perfectly. And I'm glad we didn't go with the black up on the top. I feel like that would have just thrown it off a little bit.
yeah. Well, it's always fun to just take your idea out of your head and put it on a canvas and just see if what you thought looked good actually does look good.
Absolutely. and this ended up better than I even imagined.
I'm super happy. This is my favorite part of painting is getting the reactions and it's just unbelievable how clear the reflection. I mean, the reflections are just beautiful. And like I said, when you get this blue out in the sun, it's gonna blow your mind.
Unfortunately, we don't have any sun today.
We don't have any sun today. All right, guys, so we're gonna end this thing off here. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Leave your comments if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and yeah, leave your comments. I love reading your comments. That's one of my favorite parts of doing this is the communication. So until next time.
Y'all get out there and do some work.
What he said.